go-to for founders, investors, and future owners who want to build a business that is worth buying. Having some experience within the lawn care space, I know most people think that lawn care means mowing grass. But Lawn Doctor turned fertilization, pest control, and proprietary tech into an 83% gross margin machine scaling to north of 650 territories. So today, I'm super excited to be sitting down with Eric Martin, the strategist behind Lawn Doctor's explosive growth. First and foremost, Eric, thank you for being on with us and our audience. We sincerely appreciate you, sir.
Joe, my pleasure. It's great to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
100%. If we could kind of help our audience understand what helped grow Lawn Doctor into the dominant name in home services, what's that big lever that moved the needle the most?
Well, I appreciate the introduction. I wouldn't say I'm the strategist behind Lawn Doctor. Lawn Doctor predates you and me by quite a few years. As you know, Lawn Doctor really got its start back in the late 1960s. Okay, so been franchising this model now for almost 60 years. It's crazy to think how much we've grown and evolved in that time, and just the legacy and the multi-generational owners that have been a part of this, the families and the lives that have been changed over decades with business ownership through Lawn Doctor. So very humbling. I'll start with that. But when I look back on the history and the legacy, one thing we all know is you can't buy history. You can't buy domain authority or reviews or preference or customer awareness. We've got that going for us and have for quite some time. But things have changed quite a bit in the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Heck, anymore, every few months things seem to change with technology that we know. But Lawn Doctor is a mainstay blue chip brand. And we specialize in lawn treatment and conditioning at Lawn Doctor. And you have a landscaping background, you've owned and sold and understand the game. This is not a mowing company. We're not a landscaper. It's a treatment and conditioning firm. So when you think about things like weed control and fertilization and tree and shrub care, power seeding, overseeding, aeration, general pest control, mosquito, tick, and flea control, anything for the health and beauty of a property is what we specialize in. I refer to it as a lawn spa. Some people think lawn care is mowing grass, which there's a place for that, but that's a different service and a different model than a high repeat membership. We see a customer about every 6 to 7 weeks or so in a model like this. So a vehicle and a crew member are going out and doing applications, but when you step back and think about it, you can do a lot of customers and generate a lot of revenue with one crew because you're not seeing someone every week at a low margin. So building more mass and more scale, more quickly and aggressively, allowing an owner to really work on a business that's science-based. It's proven. Not everybody can do. Most people, frankly, don't want to do their own lawn treatments because there's products involved and materials and equipment and timing, and you want to get great results. It's about the same amount of money to outsource it and have a company doing it versus trying to figure it all out, educate, buy all the stuff you need and try to do it and probably not have the same results. So that's a big reason we've been successful is people don't want to do it, don't know how to do it, but they want their lawn to look like their neighbor's lawns look really nice. And you're not going to get that unless you're treating it on a consistent basis using a professional company. So home services are where it's at. I think as you know, it's a huge industry. We can talk about it, but when you find a good model like Lawn Doctor that's available in your market and start to learn about who the owner of a business like this is and what the services are and the repeatability and the stickiness of the customer and the revenue potential and retention of revenue long term for customers that you might have paid for in your first year but keep for years and years and years, it makes it a really intriguing business model. But too many people, as I've learned, and I'm sure you would agree, get caught up in the widget too early and not in the economics and the model and the owner of the role. You got to look at a franchise differently than what do they do and do I like that service? You got to appreciate it and feel good about it, but what are the levers to drive business? And that's really what we focus on here.
I love that, and I love the fact that you broke down your core service mix for everybody. That it's really heavy on not the mow and blow as the terminology goes within the industry, but more of the upkeep and the ability for it to visually look the best that it can and look. And grass is something that does require some effort and energy and certainly chemicals to be able to provide that color that they want, to be able to get the roots to really take. So I love that you broke all of that down. The margins you mentioned already are fantastic in this particular thing. I think 83% or something like that was what I saw. What within that mix are the operational levers that help drive that such high margin?
Sure. And when you start to get into a process like this and get deeper, you start to get FDDs and start looking at financials and investments and KPIs and data. The margin that we publicly share at 83% is material cost only, but there's a labor component and obviously there's royalties involved when you're a franchise owner. So when you start to break it down and look at the true gross margin, most of our franchise owners tend to hover in that 60 to 65% range, right?
Still fantastic.
Material costs, we have buy groups and we work with big companies that give us massive discounts because we have scale and distribution around the country. We have a really good recruiting process, onboarding process, identification process. We have good employees that aspire to work with Lawn Doctor and elevate and grow with us as the businesses grow. But you're able to keep those costs lower and variable because we've been more focused over the years on more commission based and having technicians selling and being involved in upselling and upgrading to help grow their income potential, but let them control that. So we're able to have a model to keep the fixed costs down. And obviously, as a higher gross margin business, we all know it allows you to be a little more creative on your fixed expenses and how you market and various other things that you might need, additional equipment or vehicles to continue to scale. It allows you to be able to do that. So it's a higher margin. And most home service businesses, as you know, Joe, are. And people like home services because it's a $600 billion space. It's a do-it-for-me society. And really and truly, people want to get into business, and not everyone can afford $1 million plus investment bricks and mortar build out. These are lower startup costs. They require a bit of a heavier local lift, as we know. You got to become that community ambassador and build a team and build continuity and referral sources. But you can get going a little less expensively in a service model because it's vehicle based, it's route based. We're going to customers. This isn't a transaction in a store and a fulfillment. That's what people like about this is you can build scale predictably and have a real high margin because you're not having the costs associated with the traditional franchise that people think of a food or retail business. So very attractive to a higher level investor today due to the fact that home services are exploding for all the reasons I talked about. So people want to kind of look at that a little closer. That may traditionally years ago may have said, oh, home services, that's kind of cute, but I'm going to look at a big box brick and mortar. Today, even sophisticated investors go, hold on a second, home services, I kind of like what I'm seeing here in the potential, and we have a really good model, obviously, within that particular category.
Absolutely. The recurring base of it, the strong margins are two very big levers of a potential investor, but there's several things to that. Scalability as well, the ability to potentially have more than one territory. If you're a larger level investor, that's always a possibility within the fact that your model is so scalable and transferable. And I know you got some proprietary systems as well. Turf Tamer, am I phrasing it correctly?
Yes.
So help our audience give us an understanding on the differentiation, what that does for them as a franchisee for you.
Sure, happy to do that. So I'll start with Lawn Doctor and really all of our brands at Happy Nest, and we can talk about that at some point perhaps today, but we're marketing and user experience companies. We have widgets, whether you're doing lawn care, you're doing pest control, you're cleaning windows, you're cleaning homes or businesses. They're services. People outsource those, both residential and commercial. So you have to have a really good way to get in front of customers and get impressions. So really and truly, we're focused on marketing the experience of the consumer, the flow of that experience and journey, and then maintaining that relationship. So that's paramount to success in any recurring revenue membership type of model. But you layer on top of that the proprietary nature of Lawn Doctor and our equipment, as you said, Turf Tamer. We have our own applicator and our own power seeder. Those are proprietary to us. So we have our own manufacturing facility in New Jersey where Happiness Brands and Lawn Doctor are based out of. And our manufacturing plant pushes out a lot of equipment every year. We use ground meter technology for our Turf Tamer applicator. And in layman's terms, to keep it simple, it takes user error out of the equation. As you probably know, if you hire a technician and they're pushing something and spraying, you can have missed spots. You cannot get the results. The Turf Tamer does the work for the tech. It's a ride-on machine. It's a joystick, hydraulic machine. It's kind of fun to operate, actually, for our technicians, but it does the servicing. So it's calibrated and a pattern of product comes out in an even way when those wheels turn. So you can't over-fertilize, you can't under-fertilize. You're not wasting money on additional product. You're not shortchanging your customer. And the beauty of that machine as well is it opens the door to different types of employees. We have younger techs, we have more senior techs that may have physical limitations and can't do the hard labor work. Well, this takes that out of the way. So beyond that, we've essentially doubled our throughput in terms of revenue production with this machine that's now been around for about 25 years. We patented it, so only our owners can use it. And we also have our own power seeder as well, which is by far the best in the industry. Certain markets don't seed, as you know, certain markets do. If you're in a northern market versus maybe a southern market, different grass types and different results and services you'd offer. But that gives our franchisees and their teams a distinct advantage and something that can really show that differentiates them outside of the service and the journey and the great customer programs. We get good results because we have the best equipment in the industry that no one else has.
That's amazing. The fact that you've had it for 25 years means that you perfected it pretty much at this point. So it's literally copy paste for a new franchisee coming in who doesn't even necessarily have to have experience. It's going to be an exceptionally quick learning model. So that's amazing. Obviously, north of 650 territories you guys have, which is phenomenal and fantastic and humongous. But I'm sure within that there are top performers. There is in every model. So what type of operator thrives within your model?
I love that question, Joe, because there's 4,000 franchise concepts in the US, right? And conventional wisdom and talking heads will say, if you research franchising, north of 80% of all franchises will never get past 100 locations. It's very hard to grow and scale and build a distribution network around the country. And we've been able to successfully do that and still have several hundred available markets that new franchisees can possibly take a look at. So there is available territory, and we have some legacy owners that have built massive businesses that are going to at some point be looking to sell. We have a couple that are under contract right now, 7-figure sales businesses in territories that have been built and are being transitioned to someone else as the original owners are retiring out of it. So that's the beauty of business ownership. That's the goal for any of us, is to build a business, have a nice recurring income stream, use that to enjoy our lives and benefit our families, but also on the back end of that, an asset you can monetize. And when it's time to move on to something different or retire, be able to sell that cash flow, that customer base, the equipment, the territory, the goodwill you have. You're buying cash flow as a buyer in these. So these are attractive pickups for people, certainly when they do go to market. But going back to the root of your question, what separates the good from the great, the average from the okay? Models are models. They're built for success. We've shown that to work, but it's what you put into it. So when I think of successful franchise owners here at Lawn Doctor, really within Happy Nest Brands, it's not about a background or a skill or an attribute per se. It's a mentality. I think top performing owners come into a franchise, they have a growth mindset. They're not thinking about keeping it small or managing a smaller business. They want to build an empire. They want to create something that's meaningful and valuable in their community. I see successful owners having what I call an abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality. In other words, it's good to have neighbors. It's good to have other franchise owners around you to learn from and benefit from. They have more experience than you may have. You can learn from them as well and have synergies created with neighbors in your market and work well with other franchise owners. I think owners bring a consultative approach. This isn't a hard sales business, but you do have to sell in anything you get into. You got to talk to customers and build relationships with referral sources. You got to have energy, gas in the tank to get out and hustle and build and create and develop synergies, whether it's with your B&I groups or chamber, or you're getting involved with property managers or HOA directors and looking to create some bigger programs. You got to put yourself out there and get out of that kind of comfort zone, if you will, that some people kind of stay within. And I would say finally, owners that are successful, they're positive people. They're happy. They love being business owners. They love creating opportunities for themselves, for customers, for their employees. They want to be an employer. They want to build a team, because you and I both know you can't scale something when it's just you. You got to want to be an employer and help people benefit from being a part of what you're growing and give them opportunities to level up. So again, going back to the mentality, when you think about people, business and franchising, it's built to allow just about anyone that has the resources, the drive, the desire, and the mentality I laid out to do well if they execute, follow the system, and are coachable and willing to learn from others and from us at the corporate level. The last thing I will say is you have to have a level of patience as well. When people come into business, it's not I left my W-2, now I'm moving into being an entrepreneur. I expect I'm going to replace everything I had here in just a few short months and we'll be back to good, but it'll be on my own terms and I'm free to do that now. That's not reality in business ownership. You have to be willing to take a few steps back early to eventually take several steps forward. And what do I mean by that? You got to have a way to live your life for a period of time. And I never like to put time to it, but I would say for anybody, a year to a year and a half, you got to be prepared to put money into it, build that base, get to operationally break even, and at that stage, get more creative and start to expand that reach, get more dense, add services, continue to grow. But you got to have some level of income, whether it's through a spouse or other investments, or maybe you have some consultative work that you do on the side that brings in some income, but you need the decks of life clear and you need to be focused. And this has to be the primary thing you think about every single day. This isn't one of 10 things, or I'm in my office and I can get to a call or two if I really need to. That's not how you start a business in service. You got to be in it, start to surround yourself with good people, and be willing to take that time and have that patience to set that foundation correctly in those earliest stages of development. So short-minded, short-term thinkers don't tend to become business owners because this is a marathon, not a sprint. But once you get the flywheel going and momentum, it becomes that recurring annuity model that everybody desires and wants to have, but you got to be willing to have the patience and time to get to that level. And that's one thing that stops some people in their tracks that have a definitive timeline, Joe, of I need this to work and I need it to work now and I need this income at this point. Can that happen? Business models are business models. You're directing revenue growth as well, and you have to get the tourniquet on. That's going to take some time. So it's got to be the right time of life for someone.
That was freaking fantastic. I'm so glad this thing is being recorded because I'm going to go back and listen to it myself and take some notes. Like there was some nuggets that you threw there that 100% I agree with. You have got to put forth energy in any kind of business you start, whether it's a franchise or not. You're going to have to put effort, energy, and time into it in the beginning. So you do have to be willing to sacrifice to a degree short term to get that long term viability and create the legacy that you're ultimately looking for, whether that's just income stream or a potential exit. Kind of doesn't matter what your end goal is. The beginning is always going to be very similar and it's wrapped around effort. So I love that. I know your brand does a lot in reference to lead generation, marketing, and the support of your franchisees through that process. Could you shed some light on what you all do for lead generation to assist with the franchisees being able to drive that revenue?
I would be happy to do that. And I think I refer to home service franchising as it pertains to marketing as a full contact sport. Everyone's involved in it, right? So when you think about Happiness Brands or Lawn Doctor in particular, we have a centralized mentality here. Okay, so in other words, when you think about website, SEO, paid search, display, retargeting, ads on Meta, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, you have to have hooks in the water. People are searching for different things in different ways, more so now than ever before. And you also have to be playing in the AI pool as well. And there are different things that we've built into our system for that as well. But we want to create what we call a wall of sound in a franchise owner's territory and have a really strong digital presence. We have a direct mail program we run into zip codes as well. And this is all funneled into certain windows and times of year when people are buying, inquiring services like ours. So you have to have some science behind the how and the when and who you're targeting, certain types of rooftops, disposable income, but you also want to create efficient routes. You don't want to get too wide too quick as a franchise owner because that can lend itself toward lack of profitability. So density and efficiency, how we target, how we market. We use a rifle approach, not the shotgun approach where we're blasting an entire territory with ads. So that's one side of it. That's cared for. It's managed. We report on it. We have a BI tool we use that shows every franchise owner in real time. Here's your budget. Here's your CPL. Here are the impressions, the click through. Here are some tweaks we can make that we think can make it more efficient, but you have to have some time, obviously, to figure those things out. But that's running behind the scenes, and owners know that and see that. And that drives a lot of traffic and leads and impressions and clicks, and we have call to action, and we sign up customers. The other side of it is ground game. And I think that's where a lot of franchisors, I've learned, tend to not go as deep, because that's energy by the owner. That's a giver's game. That's lift. That's home shows. That's farmers markets. That's having your crews get out lawn signs in areas that corporate is target marketing and canvassing areas with door hangers. It's getting involved in a BNI group and networking with some realtors that you can create some alliances with other small businesses. As I mentioned earlier, HOAs and property managers, we've gotten bigger and bigger into larger commercial accounts as well, municipalities. So that energy and that juice needs to be brought by the local ambassador. You are the face of a business, and there's things that can be cared for and managed. There are things that cannot be. So when you look at a franchise and you start to understand their economics and their business model and what they do, what you do, the roles are very clearly defined as a franchise owner and corporate in terms of how marketing is done. But we want to create that wall of sound, and we've learned the mix of ground game with an owner who's good at that and trained to do that and knows where to target and when. Combined with our centralized media, you get that lift and create that wall of sound, and customers start to say to themselves after a period of time, where did this company come from? I'm seeing them everywhere. I drop my kid off at school, I see a sign. I come home, there's a piece in the mail. 2 days later, there's an ad that pops up. A week later, I see another ad pop up. I saw the van driving through my area. I saw them at a home show. We got to create those impressions to build that presence, and that's where you really get that momentum established. It's not just sitting back and waiting under the proverbial lead tree. Every owner gets their leads and sales every year from corporate, but they have to focus on what they can control, which is driving locally, and we put a big emphasis on that during the due diligence process to make sure that they're capable of doing that well.
I love that. Old school grassroots marketing is still the most effective manner, especially in this particular industry, to drive lead flow, lead generation, and ultimately conversion as well. Having worked in the lawn service industry, I remember having conversations with friends or family members when I was doing it. Isn't lawn care seasonal? Like, what do you do when it's cold outside? And I have a feeling there's still somewhat of a stereotypical type mentality towards quote unquote lawn care. But can you share with what your brand does differently that helps owners to avoid like potential cash flow clips or something to that effect when seasonality changes from warm to cold?
Yeah, it comes up often, and not as much today as it used to, and I'll tell you the reasons why. But let's focus on Lawn Doctor and those services for a moment. So most people don't quite understand the season of lawn treatment goes further than most know. Even in northern markets, I live in Nebraska. Okay, we have a lot of owners in the Midwest, in areas where there's snow and cold. We generally, when you look at fall services, there's spring, there's summer, there's fall, there's all these transitions and different things you offer, but we generate a lot of revenue in September, October, and in November in power seeding, scrub control, core aeration. These are big services that not all lawn treatment or lawn companies in general offer or know how to, but that carries us further. Some folks think, well, what do I do when I kind of start to wrap up in August, September? Well, no, that's going to keep going for a while, obviously. Now, more recently, I'm not even sure if you're fully aware of this, we have, over the last several years, been piloting, re-engineering, reiterating, developing. We've now gotten to a stage where we have many of our franchise owners involved in holiday lighting services. So we built that at Happiness, thank you, in-house. So we didn't go out and acquire it like we have for other brands that we have at Happiness. We built it. So different marketing tools, systems, acquisition process. Now you can market to your base of your business, but you're going to get customers that come in just for that as well. That can be transitioned into Lawn Doctor or other services as well. So it gives owners today an opportunity for two big things: predictable year-round revenue and an employee they can keep long-term, and employees that want to grow with them and level up with them. And that probably, outside of the cash flow issues that can be associated with hyper-seasonal models, it's keeping employees because you're spending money to get them and train them and onboard them and get them ready and doing a good job. And you don't want to say, hey, we got to furlough you for a while or let you go. Can you come back in March, April? It'll be great. That has happened historically. We have a bring back program and it's worked really well for a lot of our owners. But by now introducing holiday lighting services, commercial grade, mind you, this is a unique model. We're not just going into your garage and grabbing your lights from Home Depot and trying to throw them up. We're ordering them, custom fitting them, maintaining them, taking them down, storing them for you, and we're coming back next year and the year after that and the year after that to reinstall those at a fraction of the time and a much higher margin because the material cost has already been covered in year one. So when owners start to understand the model and predictable cash flow year-round, keeping employees, it's a really nice service to bring in. and you already have the infrastructure, the crews, the vehicles, the ability to do it without really changing much that you're doing from your core services. So owners have that kind of option as they look at things and kind of figure out, what they want to do and kind of businesses they want to run. But what I will say is this, and I'll turn it back to you. People want to build big businesses. Those are the types of people we want to work with anyway. That, as I said, is our avatar, that empire mindset. And if you want to get to that 7-figure sales type of business as soon as you can, it's harder to do that when you have those ebbs and flows and those breaks, because you're starting, you're stopping, you're restarting it, and every year you're adding customers and retaining customers. We have a very high retention rate, so you never start off a year with 0. You're retaining 85 to 90% of last year's base, so you know what you're coming into, but it's those gaps that can make it hard, especially in the first couple, 2-3 years, until you get to a lot of customers that are retained and you got that cash flow. Having this lighting opportunity really gives a new franchise owner a much faster path and pace toward that 7 figures, because you have that 3 or 4 months of revenue that you didn't before. So again, those are the types of people we want to work with, and they go, that seems like a lot. It's a lawn and holiday and these. Yeah, if you want to build a big business and maintain employees and create what you're aspiring to create, this is an avenue and path to be able to do that much sooner.
I'm giving you a virtual high five right now, because quite
Appreciate
literally holiday lighting was something that I was in the process of implementing with the landscape company pre-sale. So I applaud you for doing that, because to your point, I think it closes the gap of seasonality, especially in kind of Midwestern or northern areas where that weather may hit a little earlier than Texas or somewhere else in the southern area. So fantastic option that you then leverage there. That's awesome. You've referenced happiness a few times. Obviously, Lawn Doctor is underneath that umbrella, but there's many other layers to it. I would love if you could share a little bit higher and more totality, if you will, of Happiness brands.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. We love recurring revenue membership models. We love lower investment, lower fixed expense, repeatable services that are at a higher margin. We like a sticky customer, and we like uniqueness in our mousetrap. We almost like businesses that we have like almost a Disney-like feel to them, with mascots and the branding that we do. So when I joined Lawn Doctor about 9 years ago, as of this recording, it was just Lawn Doctor. And Scott Frith, our chairman, and our leadership team, as a part of my process coming on board, I had some experience with acquisitions and working with multiple brands, was we want to create a platform. And at the point in time, we didn't even know what that was going to be called. Well, of course, it became Happiness Brands. Where are we happiest? In our domicile, our home. And we thought about all these different words and what do we call this? And it became Happiness. It just fused together. Then from there, it was, what's our first acquisition going to look like here? And that took place back in 2018 with our first brand, Mosquito Hunters. Okay, so it's now become Pest Hunters. We've evolved into full pest control, not just mosquito control. So that brand over the last several years has gone through an evolution, and we brought on some incredible pest control leaders that are now working with our owners so we can do more and grow more revenue. So Pest Hunters is our first acquisition, and now about 160 locations around the country. From there, we acquired Eco Maids, which is a organic all green cleaning service, residential and commercial, recurring revenue business, a little more of a staffing business, as I'm sure you can appreciate, versus maybe a pest control or lawn care type of business. So it attracts a different type of owner and avatar that really wants to build a larger team and staff, versus one that may want to have a bit of a smaller, manageable staff. And then from there, we acquired a brand in Canada called Elite Window Cleaning. And Elite Window Cleaning, of course, does window cleaning. It does pressure washing, house washing, gutter cleaning, a lot of great services, exterior beautification. We love the model. For years, we had been looking for a window cleaning concept that we felt would meld well into Happy Nest. And we met a gentleman named Chris Stonas, who's the CEO of Elite Window Cleaning in Kingston, Canada. And Chris said, I want to grow my brand and my services in the US as well. That alignment happened. And we decided as a company, we wanted to change the name and brand it differently in the US underneath Sparkle Squad. Sparkle Squad launched about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, and has grown now to over 100 locations in that time frame around the country. So we've seen explosive growth, and the window cleaning, gutter cleaning, exterior beautification space, there are several players, but It's a great business model. We brought a whole new layer of technology. It's no ladders involved. It's carbon fiber water fed poles that can reach up to 60 feet. And you can clean windows residentially and commercially with no limitations, and obviously do it at a much more efficient way and profitability in a safer way. So what I said earlier about doing things uniquely, differently, value prop, branding, how we market, all of them have characters. We want to bring these businesses to life. Home services aren't sexy, like maybe a gym or a boutique or a nail salon, something like that. I get that, but they're durable. They work in any way you can differentiate and separate yourself in the consumer's mind through your services, how you do things, how you market your business, but as importantly, how you treat the customers. And do they want to stay with you? Are they getting a good service? So we feel we have the models and the brands. We have to find the right owner to deliver that, whether it's window or pest or lawn or cleaning or whatever it may be. But that's what we're building here. And we have a goal long term over the next 10, 15 years. We want to have several more brands that are eggs in the nest of Happy Nest. And what's beautiful about our system and our culture is owners work together. We share ideas. We've learned, lawn doctors learn things from some Sparkle Squad owners and vice versa. Yeah. So when you have this big mastermind and think tank going on, it's pretty cool to see smart people coming in, learning from each other, and rising tides, of course, raise all boats. But opportunities to share referrals and market together and those types of things obviously can create some pretty cool synergies in a market too.
That's amazing. Thank you for breaking that down. And I love the almost connected businesses that you are putting within that brand, that you can service one customer with one particular franchise, but then there's the potential add-on through all these other brands. It may be a different franchisee that's servicing them, but once you get in the door, it's generally a one-stop shop for a lot of homeowners out there. I would love if the same person that mowed my lawn would also clean my pool, would also wash my windows, would also do all those things, because I already have built-in trust and rapport with that person. So I love the fact that you guys are starting to work on that synergy. That's amazing. Great job.
We're not fully there. Like I will say, Joe, over the next 5 to 10 years, and perhaps sooner, like we have some ideas on ways that we really want to influence cross sales. You said it very well. Whether it's one owner who has maybe a couple of brands at some point, or 2 or 3 owners that have 2 or 3 brands, we're not 100% where we want to be, but we're getting closer and closer to making that more of a seamless workflow process. Today, currently, it's a little more grassroots and owners sharing with each other and promoting and leave behinds and go to this site here. Our sister brand does this. You could benefit. When you start seeing $0 acquisitions, or even if as a neighboring owner you say, hey, I'll give you a little spiff if you refer. People buying home services, like you said, they're buying multiple home services. It's a do-it-for-me society in this Amazon, Uber Eats world we're all living in here, right? So everybody wants stuff done for them, wants it now, but we want to make that as easy as possible for a consumer. But as an owner, you have other brands marketing, acquiring customers, and those can be referred over and vice versa. And those are not high acquisition like you're doing for paid media. So there's a real focus here on creating this synergistic system where owners work well together in different MSAs, and we drive down acquisition costs, which, as we all know, is the biggest expense in franchising, specifically in service models, is getting that acquisition. And then from there, how long can I keep them? What does my lifetime value look like based on the acquisition cost I have? And when people start to peel it back and learn how we model this, it starts to make a lot of sense.
It definitely does. So obviously, multiple brands underneath your umbrella. If someone was interested in any of those brands and learning more, what's their first step? What should they do?
Be reaching out to us here at Happy Nest, obviously. They can go to info@happynest.com or go to our development websites of Lawn Doctor, Pest Hunters, Eco-Maids, Sparkle Squad, or if anybody happens to be listening in Canada that comes across this, Elite Window Cleaning is still growing in Canada. I'm looking for great franchise owners there as well. So if you just Google us or go to our sites, you'll be able to submit a form that'll go to one of our development directors here, and we'll reach out. And we like to take things slow initially, get to know someone and figure out, what is your North Star? What's your why? Why are you considering becoming an entrepreneur? And let's start to talk a bit more about your skills and your background and what you might be bringing to the table, and start to talk more about our business model, our systems, our tools, and the value proposition, your role, our role. And then eventually, as you start to look through disclosures and financials and get a comfort, we want to introduce you to franchise owners and have you meet some people that have started these, and maybe they're a year in, maybe they're 20 years in if they're a veteran lawn doctor owner, or more for that matter. it gives you a chance to see what success looks like at different stages. And to me, you want to remove the curtain of secrecy. Like so many folks that look at franchising, they don't 100% know what they're coming into in certain models. And we don't want that. We want there to be clarity, expectations set, good perspective, meet people, hear the good, but also hear the bad. Hear the ugly, hear what works, what doesn't, where the challenges are, where the holes are, what they're doing to work well, what their feelings are, and where they could be better. You have to uncover those things and turn those stones over to make sure it's the right opportunity, because these are long-term plays. These aren't short-term deals. You got to build and scale and have that commitment and patience and drive to do that. But when you as a candidate know what success can look like after you speak with some owners, it tends to give you a little more confidence.
That's phenomenal. Eric, this has been a masterclass, dude. This has been amazing from a lawn care understanding perspective, but more importantly, your entirety of your brand and all the different models that fall within it. And what you just shared of kind of the due diligence process of if you're going to go a franchise route, rip back the curtain and understand everything that you possibly can understand before you make that leap, so you know what you're going into getting in. Masterclass, man. I love this. Thank you so much. For being on here, for myself, for our listeners. I will make sure that all of the social links that Eric just referenced to the different brands are included within it. So scroll down, see the comments, and feel free to reach out to the team if there's anything that you would like to learn more about. Specifically around Lawn Doctor, that obviously proves that you don't need real estate or brick and mortar to build real value. They've been doing it for 60 years. This is a legacy brand, but one that, to your point, over the last 7 to 9 has substantially scaled and created an entire platform for future growth as well. So the next 60 years are just as bright as the previous one, with systems, recurring revenue, and the right operator fit. So if you want to build something that ultimately some buyers will be lining up for, then let's talk. Reach out to myself or Eric's team and let's get your conversation started and make sure that you're the right fit for them and they're the right fit for you. So let's go out there and build strategically. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your afternoon. Bye, everybody.